Hello everybody. Let's see. There we go. Welcome to Brewhouse Art Studio. And this is tutorial 7, I believe. And I hope I'm coming through okay. Trying this new mic out, this new configuration, so hope you can hear me okay. So anyways, today's tutorial. Today's kind of hectic. Been doing a lot of various things. But there we go. All right, let's start over again. All right. Hello everybody, welcome to Brewhouse Art Studio, and today is our tutorial on using auxiliary effectors and auxiliary pivots on our character. And this is going to help us out with animation. It's a great tool to be able to get in and either hand key something or manipulate animation. I'm going to run down like the basics, how to create them, and then we'll put them into practice and we'll play around with some animation like we always do. But I've got a new segment that I'm starting. I'm going to call this, maybe I'll call this Motionbuilder Tip of the Day. This is something new to me I just discovered, sorta, rediscovered. So let me hop over to my other scene here. So here's the tip of the day. Now, if you remember one of my last tutorials, I mentioned that they had actually taken a few things out of Motionbuilder. Well, they didn't take them out. What they actually did was they moved them for some reason. Let me show you what I'm talking about. If you're wanting to edit, let's say, a walk, some raw mocap, well, we all know that actors usually don't walk in a straight line, right? They usually walk at an angle or diagonally. So we have to straighten them up in order to get them to walk straight down a path. So what you're going to do is you're going to hop over to Story. There we go. And let's insert a character animation track. Insert your character. Insert current take. Turn on the little eyedropper, select this, and you can see his motion path right there that he's getting ready to walk. In the past, what you could do is you could drag him, rotate him, and you could actually key in values right down here. The problem is they took out some of that functionality of being able to just do it right here in the interface. Where they put those are under properties. So if you go to properties, I'm gonna actually tear this out so we can actually see all of the properties. So here's all the properties for that clip and story. Now let me move this out of the way so you can see what I'm looking at here. Yeah, there we go. I'll put it right there. So if I wanted to come in here and I wanted to rotate, you can see that there are no values actually being shown here. And if I come in here, I can actually rotate them one way or the other and give them a value. But then if I want to come in and actually type in, let's say I want to zero him out, nothing happens. And it's because it's all happening up here now, where I can come in here and I can rotate them. I can put them on a 90 or negative 90, 0, 180, whatever I need to do to get him to walk in the direction I need to get him to walk in. This is extremely helpful for whenever you're going in and you're needing to take mocap and get the actor walking in a straight line. Also, they used to be able to select, like I said, the end here, but they took that away from us. You can no longer select in your view. So let me reselect that. You can come down here. You can say at start. You can say at stop. Now I can rotate them like this, and I can place this however I need. This is really helpful if you need a character to actually walk to a very specific spot. You're no longer having to guess, where that is by dragging the end effector around and then rotating it into place. You can actually come down here and say where you want it to be able to control it from. You can also go to current, which is really cool. So it's wherever he happens to be at in the animation. In this case, partway through. Now I can rotate him from that point, which is, I think that's pretty cool. I mean, I kind of miss the fact that I used to be able to select it in the viewport because it was really fast and really simple. But I don't know, it's not too bad. There's a lot of other things that you can do in here as well. You can control the ghosting. You can I guess you just have to get in here and play with it a little bit. Outside of the fading in and fading out whenever your blending takes together, you can get in here and just kind of like figure out how to manipulate this. So anyway, that is my Motionbuilder tip of the day. That's what I call it at work. Whenever I'm at work and I find something interesting, I send it out to the whole animation team. I'm like, hey, here's my Motionbuilder tip of the day. So maybe I'll let that carry on here and say, this is my Motionbuilder tip of the day. So anyway, that's how you now control story. So enough of this. Let's close this out. And let's start talking about auxiliary effectors and auxiliary pivots. I should probably also talk a little bit about the control rig and how it works and how it's kind of this symbiotic relationship between IK and FK and the character skeleton. Because you really have three things going on here that are controlling your character to move them around the universe. So all these red and blue nodes that you see here in your control rig, these are your IK effectors. And all these yellow sticks that you see right here, those are your FK effectors. IK stands for inverse kinematics. FK stands for forward kinematics. So let me give you an example forward and inverse. So forward kinematics, you grab the arm, you say, I'm going to come up here and to touch something or grab something or point. You have to grab the upper arm, then you have to grab the lower arm, then you have to grab the hand. And also notice in the character controls, I'm actually selecting the links between the circles because that is your FK. And that's how you get an arm to point. IK, inverse kinematics, you can grab the end effector. In this case, I'm going to grab his hand. And I'm just going to make sure I'm in body part mode and not selection mode or segment mode. So I'm going to grab the end effector, and I can move his hand around. It makes it a little bit easier to place his hand or body part, foot, whatever you happen to need to grab, and get it into place to get your character posed. And the great thing with Motionbuilder that I don't see in a lot of rigs is you can actually grab the fingers at the end and individually IK the fingers as you go to pose them. And what's really cool about Motionbuilder and its control rig is it doesn't matter if you grab a part of the FK or the IK. The second you go to translation and start to try to translate a joint, it's going to automatically put you into IK mode. So, for example, if I got his hand and I start moving it around, even though I have the FK of his hand selected, which is this yellow node right here, if I try to translate, it's automatically going to work as an IK. But I can still, move it as if I'm moving a FK. So there you go. IK and then FK on the elbow. Let let me give you a good example of kind of how they work together by setting in a few keys here. So I'm going to set a key here. I'm going to maybe move his hand down this way and set a key here. And if I put in a file path, you can see that he's kind of like going in this nice arc. Let me push him over here. But if I turn on now that's because it's FK. And so FK is taking into consideration what his upper arm and his elbow are doing as they actually rotate. If I come in here and I turn on IK, what's going to happen is he's no longer going along that nice arc. It's literally going to go straight from point A to point B because IK is now driving that hand straight. If I unselected the hand, which is what I had selected before, which is FK, you can see that the trajectory has changed to linear. It's like this, just a straight line now as I go back and forth. And it's because I have IK turned on, and it's because I have the IK selector selected. If I go back to his hand, let's see, unselect. No, it's straight now. So yeah, there you go. If I turn this off, unselect it and reselect it, you can see it's back to the arc because now it's being controlled by FK. So I'm going to turn on, so let's say I want to go and I want to, so a lot of times you'll want to be able to manipulate your body part through the F curves or, or graph editor or whatever you decide you want to call it. So if I have, in this case, rotation turned on, and I come down, let's go to the start frame, there we go. Let's say I have FK turned on and I need to, I want to rotate his hand. And by the way, I'm just pulling keys around, but this actually works with motion capture. If you're going in and you're editing all this data and you're like, why is this not working? Well, this is probably because of this, which I'm getting ready to show you using these simple keys. So if I come in here and I start playing with this curve, you can see that it's rotating his wrist. Let's get rid of that. You can see it's rotating his wrist. If I come in here and I select the IK and I do the same thing, let me see if I can, there it is. And I start moving around, you see nothing's happening. And the reason why nothing is happening is because IK is not turned on. The way I would turn it on is to come over to the character controls and actually, in this case, it's rotation, so I'd want to turn on rotation, and then I would like to manipulate it that way. And the same is true with translation. Like if I came into translation and I started mucking around with it, getting him to raise his arm up and down through the F curves, you can see how it's adjusting his arm accordingly. And because I didn't key anything, I haven't actually hit a key. If I turn off if I turn off IK, it'll kind of go back to where the last position was, where the IK was. So that's kind of how it works together. And all this drives the skeleton, which is what ends up getting exported to Maya or Max, or and if you're working on a video game, eventually goes into the video game. And here's his skeleton right here. So that is kind of the basics of a control rig. By default, I always have the IK fully turned on for his feet, unless he's like swinging on monkey bars or something. I usually always have it turned on his hips. Again, unless there's some reason for it not to be. This is pretty much a good default setting. I always have pinning turned on. Almost always have pinning turned on for his feet. That keeps him locked into place, like so. If I turn pinning off, now there's two ways to turn pinning off. I can actually select the joint or joints, or the controls, and I can actually go up here and unclick the translation and rotation pin, these little thumbtacks that you see up here. Grab his hips again. And like move him around. You can see he's kind of pulling off the floor. I'm in body part mode. Let me go to full body mode so you get a better idea of what's going on. So I can move him around now because those are unpinned. I can come back and I can repin him. And manipulate him. And you can see he's like wanting to stick to the floor now. I absolutely can't pull him up off the floor because I've pinned his feet. Now there's a quick unpin that you can do, which is this little gray thumbtack right here. So if you select that, it grays out any joint that you have pinned, and now I can just move them around freely like I did before. So a lot of times this is how I'll block in an animation of getting a character to move around, and I'll just move them around. Oh, I'll move them around the scene to get them into place as I figure out some animations. What else? Now there's this new feature, and I think we should try this new feature out in Motionbuilder, and this looks like pinning presets. So I haven't done this yet. So let's figure out what this does together. So I'm gonna call this create preset. I'm gonna call this default. And see what happens. All right, default. All right, so let's say I don't want his feet pinned at all. And let's create let's say I want his hands pinned because he's going to be swinging on monkey bars or something. Or he's hanging from a cliff. Create preset. Let's call this hands. All right, so what happens now? All right, hands. All right, well, we're already on hands. Default. Oh, look at that. That's pretty cool. So yeah, it looks like I was right. This is a presets for being able to have predetermined rotations. So a lot of times when I'm posing a character, I'll want to pin translation on his chest, translation rotation on his hips. Maybe his shoulders will get rotation and his head will get a rotation. And I would call that posing 1. I don't know. I'm flying by the seat of my pants here, people. All right, so now I can come in and I can be like, move him around with his chest pinned. You can see he's kind of move him down a little bit. Hey, how you doing? That's what he's saying. And then I can quickly switch over to default. And pose him how I need to. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I kind of wish this was in 2018 because that's what I use at work. All right, so now you got to kind of have a general understanding. You know, I keep saying that, but then I'm like, wait, there's other things up here that I haven't talked about. If I ever want to get him back to his stance pose, you can, if I want just a body part like his arm, which I have selected, go to body part mode, you can click that button and it'll jet that body part out. If I want the whole body, it doesn't matter what part I have selected, I can select the whole body mode, or full body mode. Yeah, full body. And then click that and it'll take me back to its stance pose. It's got body part. I have this is new in 2018, I think. Full body, no pull mat manipulation. I don't really use that. I'm sure some people do. I'm not super familiar with it. Then there's full body mode. Right here are how you can X-ray him. By the way, Control A is X-ray. So Control A will toggle you from just seeing your objects to X-ray to objects, manipulators, and objects. So right up here we have, I can toggle on and off the IK, and I can toggle on and off the IK, I can also toggle on and off his actual skeleton, so if I ever want to see what his skeleton's doing on top of everything else, I can see that as well. Usually when you plot back and forth, it'll turn these things on and off automatically, regardless of if you have it selected or not. All right, so on to auxiliary effectors and manipulators and stuff like that. So occasionally you're going to want to lock his hand to something. I showed you an example with a weapon in one of my previous tutorials of being able to constrain his hand to a weapon, and I used an auxiliary effector for that. So I'm going to create an auxiliary effector. You just any one of these IK nodes, you can select it. You can right-click on it and say Create Auxiliary Effector. And it creates this little magenta pinky colored box around whichever part you've selected. And then you can use that to manipulate the hand. Now there's a catch with this. You have to have your IK turned off on your hand in order for that to work. So if I turn it on his hand, you can see it's not really working. It's not really following the IK. It's actually fighting the IK because essentially it's two IK effectors in the same spot. And so the hand is kind of being pulled between the two. So you want to actually, if you're going to put an auxiliary effector on something, you're going to want to turn off any reach or pull on that in particular node. So anyways, so now with it selected, or the other turned off and this on, I can rotate it. And this is really good for, let's say you've got a piece of motion capture and maybe the guy's arm is a little bit weird or a little bit fidgety and you need to, the director says, please, can you tone that down? You can actually create an auxiliary effector on every joint. Unfortunately, you can't select multiple ones. They won't let you. I can't just select, and right-click and say Create Auxiliary Effector because it'll only create whatever the last one is that you've selected or the one you're actually clicking on to create it. But what you can do is, let's say the arm is very fidgety, you can actually, I'll show this later on if you guys remind me, but you can select it, you can actually turn translation rotation off on all the effectors, and just on rotation, like during the animation, just on rotation, you can actually start to blend the weighting value on these on, and you'll retain the actual curves and motion of the motion capture, but it will tone down the actual movement as a whole on just that one body part. It's a kind of a quick, easy way to get some subtle motion out of something that may be a bit noisy or a bit over exaggerated. These things by default when they come in, they are constrained to your the top node in your control rig. They don't have to be. Come down. I usually pull these into place wherever I need them in my schematic view because I like to work with my schematic view over here to the side. But I can right click here and I can say I'm parent, confirm, and now I can move these wherever I want to put them. If I have a rig in my scene, like a weapon rig, like I showed in my past tutorials, I'd probably have these sitting next to the control rig to whatever node is actually affecting them. You can parent these to, like, let's say you got to get into a vehicle, which is what I'm going to be demoing later. You can parent them to a vehicle and then animate the vehicle and all sorts of fun stuff to kind of get that contact that you want to get out of something. But yeah, this is just a really easy, fast way to be able to, like, quickly create an IK node that you can stick your hand to. Obviously, these things can be keyed on and off over time by just clicking the key buttons. So key, go forward in time, turn them off like that. A lot of times I do a one frame blend, but you can do it over several frames. It's if you're careful about it, you can get some really good motion with that. But typically speaking, I just manipulate it myself and then just do a one key blend. If you want, you can either come up here, you can where is it? You can right click and say clear extra effectors, and it will clear any extra effectors on that node. You can come here, you can actually select the effectors, which is what I usually do because it's super easy. Just go select, and then you just put your cursor over here somewhere, either in your producer perspective or a viewport of some sort, and just then you can hit delete, and it will just delete those nodes, no problem. Be careful you don't have one of these selected. Come over here and hit delete because it will delete that node. And yeah, that's not, usually you get a warning, but say, hey, you sure you want to delete this? It's being used by something. But that's just an easy way to select and then delete, and it's gone. The second thing are pivots, auxiliary pivots, and these are really good. Like, I kind of showed a little bit how I used it in the past with a weapon. Let me move my hand. We're going to pretend he's holding a gun, like so. In fact, I'm just going to pose this other hand like it's on a weapon. We're going to pretend he's got an invisible weapon here. And I'm going to quickly create an auxiliary effector. I'm going to parent that auxiliary effector to the other arm. For the heck of it, parent. There he goes. Now when I control this hand, you can see it's controlling his arm. So if his hand was on a gun, traditionally you would have to go, well, I need to pose that gun to be up and then down and then in and so on and so forth. And that's kind of how you're controlling it. But what I can do is I can come in here and I can right click and say create auxiliary pivot. And it puts you in a pivot mode. You can see it's actually changed right here. And you have this little pivot icon that's now looks grayed out. It's actually highlighted. And that now I can come over here and I can move this. And in this case, I'm going to move it right between his two hands. So let's say maybe it's not a gun. Maybe it's a bow staff or something that he's got a hold of with both of his hands. And you want to be able to like make it feel a little more realistic. So anyways, come over here, place it wherever it is that you need it. And then you can click right here and say back to model view, which is Q, or you can just hit Q on the keyboard and that'll switch you back to being able to select and move things around. So now when I pivot, I can still pivot. I can still control them right here, but I also have the option of controlling from here. So now I can do a better job and a quicker job of getting him to pose with that weapon or that prop or whatever it is that I need to get these arms to work in unison with. Just a real simple way of doing it. If I expand this over here, it's got IK as well. So if I turn that on, I'll be able to lock it down and all sorts of other things that you can normally do with the hand. The IK looks like it's there, but it's actually it's still there on that pivot. See what happens if I move this arm. Yeah, it's all. Yeah. Oh gosh, let's see. Pivot. Lock it down. Oh yeah, keep in mind it extends to fingertips because fingertips have effectors on the end. You can create auxiliary effectors and auxiliary pivots for it as well. Right on your fingertips. Let's see. So moving this around. So let's say you had big club feet. You could actually come down here. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. But first, yes, create auxiliary pivot. So I'm just I can create a few here. I can put them around it. Let's say the character had like just big, massive feet. There we go. Put one there. And I think you can create up to 9 of these. At least last I checked, you can create up to 9 of them. So 0. And move that over here. Hit Q to get back over to edit mode. Now, let's say he's got to roll his ankle or something in the animation. I can roll it here, animate it down, and when it hits the floor like that, I can come over here and select this other one and roll it again. Now, when you create an auxiliary effector or auxiliary pivot, there is no animation on it. Even though there's animation on your body, there is no animation on your auxiliary pivots or effectors. The way you get it, animation on them, is you actually bake your animation down, and it puts it on there. So let me see, how can I show this? Let me clear this out of here so that the left arm doesn't get in the way. Now, if I turn off the IK on that effector, remember I put some keys on that hand, just a couple of simple keys. He's doing this, right? It's the original two key animation that I showed. But if I turn on the IK, you can see it kind of goes back to where it was originally created. Now I want to get animation onto this because it's going to be important in the future for me to be able to animate with it. Or let's say I need to pivot his hand for some reason from here in the animation. So once you've created it, and actually I'm going to do the same thing with his other arm and an auxiliary effector. So I'm just going to set a key here. And I'm going to set a key up here. Oh, grab the wrong thing. Come down here. Pull his hand out, set a key there. All right, now I'm going to create an auxiliary effector. So now I got a pivot and an effector on the hand that you can see. And obviously his left hand is no longer moving because the auxiliary effector is turned on. So let me turn that. Let me turn off the influence. I always call it reach. Reach on translation, reach on rotation. So anyway, so now he's doing this. Now if I plot, watch what happens. Plot to skeleton. Plot back to my control rig. That's baking everything down. What's happening? It's animated. They actually snapped to the wrist and actually keyed with the rest of the animation. So if I turn on the influence or the reach in translation and rotation, it moves with it. And now I can actually manipulate through the curves here in order to get it to do what I need it to do. But that being said, because this is animated, and let's say I need, let's see, what's a good example? Let's say I need a kill rotation for some reason on Z. Let's say I want a linear, it to translate linearly. You can see because I have control over that element of the control rig, it will actually, I can control it that way pretty easily. Let's say I don't want any rotation whatsoever on Z or X or Y. Let's say I just don't want rotation at all. So anyway, that's just one way you can use these just to set up. So whenever you watch one of my other tutorials, or if you've already watched it, that's why I created these little blue boxes on the control rig on the props. If you go back to the props for motion capture tutorial I did, that's why I have these constrained to these blue boxes or these hand attached nodes. It's because I usually want to get these things locked down because when I plot my animation down, I want those to stay in place. So I wonder if I can give you a good example of a way to use these with a prop. Let me think about this. Yeah. What's a good example? I'll pull over my Master Chief helmet. Hopefully the dogs don't bark at me this time. Seeing it. But let's say you got your space helmet, and you've taken your space helmet off, and the actor comes over and they have to raise the visor up. They got to raise the visor up and hold it out here or something, right? And the director says, so you've done all this animation, their hands are constrained to it, and you hold it up, and you're working it. Let me go over to my camera so you can see this. So now you've got your helmet, and your animation's great, but then the director says, I need you to take the helmet and lift it up and push it off to the other side to do everything. But you have all this animation of him lifting up the visor and everything. Well, what you can do is you can create a couple of auxiliary effectors, the pink boxes that you see. You can parent them to the prop, turn off the influence so that they're not controlling the hand, and you bake everything down. And they're going to bake down with everything, but they're parented to the helmet. So then all you have to do is take your rig, which your helmet should be on, and you can then control it and shift it over to the other side or wherever the director wants it, and lift it and rotate it, and your hands will go with it, and it'll still raise up the visor as if you meant to do it the whole time. And I'm gonna have to find a good example of that, because it's easier to see it than to it's easier to see it than it is to sit here and to explain it with crude props. Reloading a weapon's a great example. Like if you got to take the magazine out and drop it and come back in, this is a lot of work, like to get the weapon and to reload your animation. Maybe you put the gun up, take out the magazine, come back, but the director goes, I need it here, out, and twist it. Well, you still retain all that animation and come back because of the auxiliary effector. And it's just a little bit of cleanup work to make sure that when the hand does come off, that you're not going through the body. But it saves you a tremendous amount of time. All right, so where was I? It is 9:15. There hasn't been a lot of chatter in chat tonight, but if anybody has any questions, this would probably be a good time to ask them, because if not, I'll do what I normally do. I'll kill my stream. I'll open up the next file, and we'll start putting all this into practice, and we can see kind of how everything is used. So give you all a second to figure out any questions you may or may not have. Bueller. Just kind of play around with this for a little bit while I wait. Manipulate. While I'm waiting for questions, let me give you another good thing that you can do with a control rig. I'm just going to go ahead and select all this stuff and delete it. See, again, I don't have to come here, right click and remove elements. I can actually come over here into one of these viewports with my cursor and hit delete, and it removes them all. Instead of having to go click, remove, just select, delete, and they're gone. All right, so let's say you got to do an arm wrestling animation, and you want to get that elbow to stick on the table. Let me show you how to make that happen. Because or you got to take a knee to the ground and arm wrestle. There you go. You got two things you got to stick to the ground. It's gonna be tough. So let's make the character take a knee. There, she's got these big weird knee pads on, so I'll just Just push it out there. And let's see, he's going to arm wrestle with his right arm because he's right. I decided he's right-handed. Come on, you can do it. IK versus FK. Sometimes it's easier to do one than it is the other. All right, so let's put in a little table here. A happy little table. Asset browser, elements, cube. Drop that in there. All right, let's bring that up to his elbow. There is our arm wrestling table. And of course, what else can I do? I could, if I had a guy sitting across from him, I could use an auxiliary effector and lock their hands together if necessary. Or auxiliary pivots and use constraints to lock their hands together. All right, so he needs to arm wrestle this guy now. So how am I going to make this work? How am I going to get his knee to stick to the ground and his elbow to stick to the table? It's actually simpler than you think. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to his knee that's on the ground, which is this one, right? And I'm going to turn on, well, first I'm going to go to a new take, just in case. Nope. There we go. Set a key. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on translation. And I might as well turn on rotation, see how it works. Then I can pin. That's going to make sure it's pinned. So if I grab his hips, you can see he's kind of pinned to the ground, but he's kind of also, I'm also pushing him around a bit. So what else am I going to do? I'm going to take his knee, I'm going to turn on IK pull. I'll tell you what this does. You can see it kind of gives him a little hop up and down. He's back into place. Now if I grab his hips and start pulling him around, you can see he's really locked in there now. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put IK pull onto his left foot as well, just to make sure that's planted. I'm then going to do the same thing to his elbow. I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to pin it. And I'm going to turn on IK pull. What this is going to do is it's going to allow me to be able to adjust him and animate him and keep him pinned to the table. So this control rig is going to work the best it can to make sure that these body parts do not lift up off the table. So that is how you can get a character to, let's see, camera. That's how you can get a character to kind of like lean on a table with motion capture on it. So there's a lot of motion capture. They can lean on a table. You can pin their elbows down or turn on those effectors, pace poses. You can motion edit the animation, and everything just kind of sticks. But it still has that fidelity of the motion capture in it. I just got a message. Somehow my I think none of my messages are coming through. This is weird. Hold on. Let me check my stream here. This is strange. Oh, Google. This is really strange. For some reason, I'm not seeing any of my messages come through. Oh, I see you, Blood Dragon. For some reason, my stream chat in OBS is not working. That's really strange. So I'm gonna apologize if I'm missing questions. Oh no. My girlfriend's helping me out. She's like, "Go read your messages." I'm like, oh man. By the way, Discord is up, so you should be able to also hop right into Discord using that link. I think, hopefully. So strange. Why is this not working? So let me see if I can. No, I want this. I don't want that. I want this. I'm gonna do a little bit of Inception here. Inception. I'm gonna move this other screen over and click on that so you don't have to look at two of me, because who wants to look at two of me? Now I can see chat. So there we go. Yeah, it's a. Oh, don't look at me. Again. There we go. Oh, Inception. There. Test. All right, I see you all here. Give you some dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. Wonder if I throw these in my chat, if it will. Yeah, it popped up. OBS. All right. So, again, I apologize. I had no idea messages weren't working or getting through. All right. So anyway, so that, like I was saying, that's how you get things to pin down. So.
You see, I texted you a picture of the messages that you missed, so you can answer the questions.
Cool. All right. So my awesome girlfriend texted me a picture that screenshot she took with her phone. Text. Let's see. Do you ever have to redo animations for a character if something changes later, like they get a much larger gun than originally envisioned, or the character suddenly now has arm or a cape or something that might interfere with the animation? Absolutely, yes. Things happen sometimes, and they say, we've redesigned the gun, we've redesigned the vehicle, we've put bigger boots on the character, we've added armor, and now sometimes hands are clipping through. I'll give you a scenario. So you Star Citizen fans will like this one, because I'm not spoiling anything. One of our mission givers, she was the motion capture came through, and the character that we were putting the animation on is a much slender, the generic female character that's in game. So when the actual character came in, she was a little bit heavier set, kind of a stockier build woman, because she's like a rough and tough individual who's like, you don't mess with her because she's such a tough girl. And all of a sudden her hands are going through her body. So we actually had to take the time and do something like 200 animations and fix all the animations that we had previously done. And it was quite the undertaking. So good practice would be, you don't start on something until you know exactly what character it's going to go on. But occasionally things will change and you'll have to adapt and overcome. Let's see what else we got here. Well, that's the only question I see right now. Are there any other questions before we move on to practices? see. Yeah, you're probably right, Blood Dragon. I probably have to restart this. But maybe restarting OBS when I kill my stream and start it, everything will pop in. Maybe. All right, so I don't need to save this. If anybody ever has any questions, or if you have any suggestions on things that you would like to know more about, I reinitiated the suggestion box down below, so feel free to say, hey, can you talk more about this? Can you talk more about that? And I'll see if I can work that into future tutorials. I had a request from somebody who found my videos on YouTube about how can you take a walk that's where they're walking straight and get them to walk around a corner. That's quite a challenge. I'm still having to think about that one. I'll have to investigate. Anyways, I don't want to get off on I don't want to get off here on something else. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to kill my stream, open up my file, and restart my stream up again, and I will be back in just a few seconds. So I'll see you all shortly, like in 10 seconds.